Alright everyone, Miss LaFrance here. I'm going to go over your Unit 3 study guide with you, so make sure you have that in front of you. And you're also going to need your textbook, or I'll show you how to get back onto the online textbook and you can use that for most of it. Okay. Number 1 asks, what was the New Jersey plan for representation in the new government and what was the Virginia plan? So since we're getting further and further into the school year, you should know how to find these answers by now. So I'm actually going to walk you through to showing you where the answers are located, and then you can go through and fill out the sheet. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull up my wiki page, and I'm going to scroll to some notes that we took. So here are some copies. This was the outline that we did together. This is the fill in the blank activity, so I'm going to open that up. And this worksheet that we went over together after you did it will actually have a lot of the answers here. So the first compromise was how to create the legislative branch. James Madison proposed remember we filled in, so the Virginia plan. And then here's the answer to what is the Virginia plan. It was a 2-house Congress with each state's representation based on the state's population. Small states did not like this plan. They feared large states would have too much power. So William Paterson proposed the New Jersey plan, which called for a single-house Congress and all the states would have equal representation. Large states did not like this idea. In order to get a constitution, the delegates compromised and came up with the Great Compromise, which will be later on in your review sheet. If you don't want to use this to help you study, you could pull out these notes that I gave you that should be in your notebook. And on this side, you have a chart about the New Jersey plan. And on this side, you have the Virginia plan. And then down here, you have the Great Compromise, which again will come up later. If you don't have these in your notebook with you, you can get them all from my wiki page. Here's the first one I went over, and here's the second one that I just went over. Okay. Okay, back into our slideshow. Question 2. What were the major compromises of the Constitutional Convention? For this one, you need to identify them and then explain them. If you can identify and explain them, you'll be fine for the test. So I'm going to go back to my wiki page. And I'm going to go back to the fill in the blank. We just went over the Great Compromise, but if you want to use your chart, this has it condensed. So the first compromise would be the Great Compromise, which gave us a 2-house legislature, the House and the Senate. Equal representation is in the upper house of Congress, which is our Senate. Representation in the lower house of Congress, the House of Representatives, to be proportional to population. Okay. Now, that doesn't work for you. You can also pull out your textbook. So I'm going to open up my browser here. I'm going to type in the website. And I'm going to put in our username. And then our password, which is civics1, no spaces. Going to launch our textbook. Don't forget to click this. And now we are inside our textbook. So I'm going to turn to page 115. And down here it starts talking about reaching compromise. Here's the Virginia and New Jersey plans, and the book explains it. And then here in a nice little chart, the same thing like the notes that I already gave you. We have the Virginia plan, the New Jersey plan, and the compromise, which is the Great Compromise. See? Great Compromise. Okay? The next one that you need to know is the 3/5 compromise. So here was the debate between the southern states and the northern states. And they came up with the 3/5 compromise, which said 3/5 of slaves counted as population in the House of Representatives, and 3/5 of slaves would be counted for the purpose of determining taxation. Again, if you want to use your textbook, go back into my book, turn the page. We have more details on the Great Compromise. And then the next page, 117, we have the 3/5 compromise. So up here. You have this, and then you can even click it and have the book read it to you.
3/5 Compromise. The plan agreed to during the writing of the Constitution that counted each slave as 3/5 of a person when a state's population was calculated.
Okay, So we'll go back to our questions. So question 3, what document needed to be added to the Constitution for it to be ratified by the states? Okay, let's turn to that chart. So we have the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists arguing over should the Constitution be ratified or not. And the Anti-Federalists wanted a Bill of Rights, whereas the Federalists didn't. So in order to ratify or get ratification of the Constitution, we add in the Bill of Rights. Okay. You can also go to your textbook. So in your textbook, you're going to want to turn to page 120, or again, you can just type it in the box up here. And on page 120, it explains how the Constitution had to be ratified, gives you the arguments about the Federalist, and then page 121 goes into the Anti-Federalist. And then it begins the Bill of Rights issue. So on page 120, so page 121 is going to go through that, and then I turned here to page 122. You can find more information about the Federalists and Anti-Federalists and favoring a Bill of Rights. Number 4, what type of government divides power between the federal or national government and the state? This is going to be talking about federalism. So we're going to go back to our textbook, and on page 125 in the textbook takes us to our next section, actually page 124, and I know federalism is the answer, so I'm going to click that, and it's going to take us to our page about federalism, and again you can have the book read it to you.
Federalism. The division of powers between the states and the federal or national government.
Okay, now we're ready to move on to our next question. Question 5. What system that allows each branch of government to limit the powers of other branches in order to prevent abuse of power? So I'm going to go back to my textbook. I'm going to close this. Go back to page 124 because that's where all of our terms were. And checks and balances is the answer, so I'm going to click that. And it's going to take you to page 131, and this section here is going to explain that.
Checks and balances. The system that gives each of the 3 branches of government ways to limit the powers of the other 2.
Okay. Question 6, what does the U.S. Constitution do? So we're going to go again back to our textbook. And here on page 124, it explains the goals of our government and what the Constitution does. So you really want to pay close attention to this paragraph here. And it says, as the supreme law of the land, the Constitution protects the rights of citizens by providing general rules that the national government and the state governments must follow. So simply, the Constitution is our plan for government. How will the government work? It's in the Constitution. Question 7. What are the first 10 amendments added to the Constitution called? The easiest place to find this answer is going to be right back in this notes here, your chart. If you look at the bottom, ratification. James Madison drafts 10 amendments to the Constitution. These become the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is the answer. Number 8, what is the Bill of Rights designed to do? The Bill of Rights are designed to protect the rights and liberties of the people, which is what the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists argued back and forth. So the Anti-Federalists wanted a Bill of Rights to declare and protect the rights of the people, and the Federalists didn't really think a Bill of Rights was needed, but they did add one. So right here again, this is where your answer is going to be. Number 9, which group would not ratify the Constitution without a Bill of Rights? All on this chart again, the Anti-Federalist. Number 10, which government? Provide an answer for each of these. Okay, in class we worked on this, and you have a couple of different charts that I gave you and Venn diagrams, but it's also in your textbook. So if you turn to page 127 in your book, let's see, you will get to this diagram, sharing the power. We have the powers of the national government, shared powers, powers of the state governments. So the first one wants to know about sanitation services. That one's not going to be specifically in the book here, but remember when we did the activities in class, we broke it down and said the local governments, you have the trash men come pick up your trash at your house. They're from the town of Neptune, so that would be the answer. Prints $5 bills. That one is on this chart under coin money, so that would be the national government. And then provides for interstate roads. So again, we talked about what happens inside the state, outside of the state. Anytime you go between multiple states, it would be the national government. So it's going to be there. So you're going to want to pull out all the handouts that we worked on Tuesday and that we'll work on tomorrow in class. Question 11, what do the Federalists support? Anti-Federalist. Again, you're going to go back to this chart here. We have the Federalist, Anti-Federalist, and you can go back to your book as well. The Federalists are on page 120 and the Anti-Federalists are on page 121. Question 12. Who were the leaders of the Federalist Party? You're going to need your book for this. And on page 120, we go back and we're talking about the Federalist. And this doesn't mention any leaders. So we're going to scroll through until we find that. Okay, Federalist Papers, here we go. Patrick Henry provided a strong anti-Federalist voice in this debate. So we would say that we're looking for the Federalist leaders, though. So here we go. Some leading Federalists responded to Patrick Henry and other anti-Federalists in essays that were pro-Constitution. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay wrote the essays. So to answer the question, the leaders of the Federalist Party, you're going to look on page 122 in this first paragraph of the Federalist Papers. Question 13. Which group favored states' rights? Federalist or anti-Federalist? And again, you want to use your chart here. So anti-Federalists wanted a weak federal government that would not threaten state rights. Okay, questions 14 and 15. Which governments make decisions on trade between New York and New Jersey? And which of the following is most likely responsible for making sure that your community has safe drinking water? So your choices would be state, national, or local. And again, you're going to go back to the handouts that you have from class or your book, page 127. So you're going to use this to figure that out. Okay, questions 16 and 17. We gave you a cartoon. That cartoon is going to be on the test, the exact cartoon as you see it. So if you read the cartoon, Calvin is comparing his dad to someone. And if you read the whole thing and thinking about what we've gone over in class, you should come up with the president as the person who he is being compared to. The next question says, the child in the cartoon strip above is a 6-year-old boy named Calvin. What is the main point of the cartoon? The main point of the cartoon is that terms of office for elected and appointed officials is different. So if you see he's comparing being elected for president versus being appointed for life. So again, this is going to be on the test. It's just using the cartoon and the material in front of you to analyze it and come up with an answer. Okay. The last part of your review sheet has an open-ended question. This is the question exactly as it appears on your review sheet. It will be the exact same question on the test. To get full credit for this, you need to answer the whole question. So Amanda and her friends have noticed these two problems in their neighborhood. Problem 1, the garbage cans in the public park are overflowing. So you need to explain how Amanda and her friends could solve the problem of overflowing garbage cans in the public park. Problem 2, many younger children have trouble crossing the busy streets on their way home from school. You will then have to answer how Amanda and her friends can help younger children who have trouble crossing the busy streets on their way home from school. Now, the key to both of these is not saying pick up the garbage yourself and help cross the students, because you can't realistically do that every day, all day. So what you're going to need to do is figure out, is this state, local, or national government's problem? And then what could you ask them to do in return for you? Problem 2, again, is this a state, national or local problem, and what could you do to get them to help you?